The comments and statements made within the show are the opinions of the commentators and their guests, have not been evaluated by the FDA, and are in no way attempt to diagnose, treat, mitigate, cure, or prevent any disease or illness. The contents of this show are not to be construed as medical advice. If you have a health condition or health concern, please contact a licensed, qualified healthcare practitioner.
Hi everyone, I'm Nan.
And I'm Tom, and this is a Supplement Super Sleuth.
That'll be me, and the Herbal Storyteller.
And that definitely would be me. And together, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain of the natural products industry.
We'll be sharing naturals in the news, dispelling lots of myths, interviewing key players in the industry, and highlighting our favorite herbs and supplements.
So with that, let's pull back that curtain and see what's there.
Hey there, Tom. How are you?
Hey. Well, I'm here, and that's about what I can say. I know it's been a big weekend for our guest, who we're going to introduce in a little bit, and it's been a busy week for us.
Very busy.
But welcome to the Supplement
And the
Super
Herbal
Sleuth.
Storyteller, and we have some really interesting naturals in the news to start right out of the block. Hey, I don't know if you knew this, but the USDA decided to change their labeling laws to allow for genetically modified foods to be called bioengineered instead of GMO. I can see Rob doing one of these. No. Tom's going to
nod my head, but I can't nod my head to that one. I've got to go.
I get it. No. Oh, no. And if you didn't know, we're kind of, putting up the sign going, hey, people, you got to pay attention because the labels have switched. And Tom's going to read the article, or at least parts of the article for you, so that you understand what's going on here. GMO is a big deal for a lot of us in the natural products industry. We try and avoid these things. We have made a giant push in our industry against genetically modified organisms in foods and supplements and herbs. And in Europe, it is a big deal. They really are very against it, but but there's been a little switcheroo. So Tom, go ahead and share the article.
Okay, well, this article actually comes out of the Boston Globe. It was kind of buried in the Boston Globe back in January, but it's for those of us who like our food as nature intended rather than as the gentlemen in labs all over the world seem to think that, hey, we can do a better job than nature and the creator. We'll just splice a gene here and snip a gene there and make it better. We'll put a rat gene in a tomato and a tomato gene in a rat, and we'll do all these other things. Usually they had to, label those foods as genetically modified because that's what they are. Their gene sequence has been modified. But due to the overwhelming whining and crying by the industry of people who are genetically modifying foods and saying, okay, this is absolutely going to make it so much better for all of us.
Better living with chemistry. Wink.
Yeah, better living with chemistry. Exactly. That's why we have no problems with any of the extra chemicals that we have in our environment right now. But what they've basically done is they've said, look, we're not going to call it GMO or genetically modified anymore. It is now bioengineered. So if you want to buy that line of bioengineered, really it doesn't say so on the label anymore. What it says here is that foods that previously were labeled as containing genetically engineered ingredients or genetically modified organisms will now be labeled as bioengineered or come with a phone number or a QR code guide that will guide consumers to more information online. So basically, rather than just seeing it say genetically modified, you're just going to see a little QR code, or you're going to see a little phone number down there somewhere on the label that you're supposed to know will direct you to the idea of, gee, I'd like to find out if this food is genetically modified. Now,
so it may not even have it on the label. That's the issue. Yeah.
I know. A bioengineered plant or animal has had a new gene inserted, supposedly as a useful trait. So if you want a left-handed carrot and you think that's a useful trait, they can insert a left-handed gene in your carrot, and your carrot will be left-handed instead of right-handed. No, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not too much.
What could possibly go wrong?
Basically,
What could possibly go wrong? Exactly.
What could possibly go wrong? Absolutely. So only a handful of foods on the market are really bioengineered right now. But what this does is this kind of opens the door to a lot more because if they're kind of stealth and you have to look for it. So here's the upshot. One example, for instance, which to me, I always go by the old adage, that you are what you eat. I think most of us in this industry have seen that you are what you eat. Well, okay, so for instance, look at this. The milk from a cow that ate bioengineered alfalfa is not considered to be a bioengineered food. So here you are, the cow is what the cow ate, i.e., bioengineered alfalfa. We have no idea what else is going to happen generations down the line, but the cow ate the bioengineered alfalfa and the cow produced milk, and the milk is being sold, but it's not bioengineered because, gosh, it's okay.
So, and the big thing
So
about,
let the
right,
buyer
buyer beware,
beware.
because bioengineering usually means that they shift it to be less sensitive to insects or mold or yeast that damage the plant. And we don't really have a sense of what that means when we ingest plants that don't have the same type of immune system that they used to have, because of now the immune system is completely different. So that's the big beef for all of us in the natural products industry, is that what are they bioengineering? Are they bioengineering, different kinds of pesticides into the plant? Are they bioengineering? Are they shifting the original immune system to be kind of a Hulk immune system that just destroys everything? So we don't know what it really means. And that, like Rob said, what could go
What could go
wrong?
wrong?
And if I could just even if it's something
Absolutely.
as innocuous or beneficial as like the golden rice, right? That
Right.
was what was gonna when they add the beta carotene to the
Right.
rice. What people pointed out is this is the agribusiness, big agra's alternative to biodynamic farming that's
Right.
been going on for thousands of years. It's still monocrop, right? And they instead, rather than doing biodynamic farming and crop rotation and things that traditional farmers have used for thousands of years, they still want a magic bullet, even if it's a seemingly, and it's not even pesticides, what it's adding nutrients. It's like we still don't want that
Right.
because it's undercutting the natural balance.
Right. Exactly. Well said. It's
Well, and what's interesting is, honestly and truthfully, there will be a little green label, obviously green because that's the right color to let everybody know, sure, this is green, it's healthy, it's safe. But there will be a green label that will say, bioengineered or derived from bioengineering, maybe.
maybe.
The other thing is that, yeah, the other thing is that, there's a question in the article, if the package doesn't have a QR code or a bioengineered food label, is it free from genetically modified
No, it's
ingredients?
not.
No, it's not. There's a threshold. They've allowed 5% to remain detectable. So if there's a detection of 5% bioengineered, it's not considered to be, it doesn't have to be labeled even as bioengineered. So highly processed foods will have things that are potentially bioengineered and you won't even know it because they don't have to be. In the European Union, by contrast, it's less than 1% instead of 5% here in the US. So it shows you just sort of how much, like Rob pointed out, big ag and manufacturers who use things like this so much have gotten sway because that's literally 5 times the allowable. Anyway, we
No,
don't want to
but
dwell on this
this is a
terrible
heads
subject.
up. That's why we're sharing that. And the next title for our next Naturals in the News headline will be um, will be a conversation about a, a sugar called Jaggery. And the article title is called "Is Superfood Jaggery the World's Healthiest Sugar?" So Jaggery, if you don't know what that is, it's from India, the continent of India, and it's used widely in Ayurveda. And it's unrefined cane sugar, which is rich in iron, magnesium, potassium, and a variety of vitamins and especially minerals. And Tom found this article and it really started a conversation between the two of us about the taste of sweet and our addictions to sugar and sweet things in the United States, and how empty that is for us here in the US. Now, the taste of sweet in traditional Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda is really important. There's a balance to it. The taste of sweet builds us. Proteins are actually sweet. The amino acids in them, when you taste them separately, are very, very sweet on the tongue. And proteins build the body, just as sugar builds the body. So anything that tastes sweet is going to build. It's going to create muscle. It's going to create tissue. It's going to create fluids. And in some cases, that's a good thing. And in other cases, too much is just too much. So Tom and I were sharing about this article. Do you have anything to share? I mean, I thought it was a really interesting article on Jaggery.
Well, having lived in Hawaii and very close to a sugar mill, you watch the cane being harvested, and first it's burned. All of the leaves which are very sharp. They get burned off, so they burn the whole cane field, and then they scoop it all up with giant tractors and throw it into big trucks and take it down to the factory where it's washed a little bit. Then it's actually crushed and ground and refined, and the molasses is extracted. And now in the molasses there are all kinds of wonderful, especially iron and folate and things like that, that are processed out of the white sugar. So you end up with something that's just a molecule of sweetness, so to speak, and all of the really goodness of the cane is taken out. And so in India, Jaggery is, I mean, it's an amazing industry. If it's hot in the summertime and you're in India, you can go to a Jaggery stand or literally a sugarcane juice stand would be even more appropriate. And they're going to press the fresh raw
Amazing.
sugarcane and give it to you in a drink with a little bit of ice. And on a hot day, it's the most amazing thing you've ever tasted because it's such a beautiful hit of B vitamins
And
and
minerals.
everything.
Yeah.
And
Electrolytes.
yeah, so Jaggery is unrefined cane juice that has been cleaned, boiled down, and it comes out as this really rich, beautiful golden color. To give you an idea of what it might be, also considered like Muscovado sugar
Yeah.
from Portugal is a sugar that's very much
Yeah.
similar to that. Again, it's just sugar that hasn't had the molasses
So it's a
taken out.
plant,
So
right?
Ayurvedically, it's a
It's a
very
very important
important,
plant.
yeah, it's a very
And
important
it's so
sweetener.
interesting. Can you imagine for all those people who juice? Can you imagine saying, "I'll have my sugarcane juice today"? and
I
And
would
here's the
go for
interesting
that.
thing about that is that it may give us the nourishment that we were looking for. That little taste of sweet that with that, because it has other flavors to it. You taste a little bit of the sour, you taste a little bit of the bitter because it's whole plant. And then you would just feel nourished and that would be it. You'd have a little bit and that would be it, right? So sugars
Yeah.
can be healing on a lot of people who are doing paleo and they've like cut out all carbs and all sugars. You're missing one of the three macronutrient holy grails. I mean, there's only three macro. I mean, there's three macros, right? You have fats, proteins, carbs. That's it. They must be important. One of my favorite books to help people understand about the healing quality of sugar is Sugars That Heal by Dr. Mondoa. It's a favorite of mine. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's great for lay people. It can really help you understand that simple sugars, glyconutrients that are more complex sugars that we may see in mushrooms, edible and medicinal mushrooms, glyconutrients that we see in whole grains like quinoa or buckwheat, the whole grain. These are whole foods and they nourish us in a way and they take away that constant desire for sweet, sweet, sweet. And when we only use corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, or if we only use white sugar, we're getting a taste of sweet, but we're not getting the nutrients that our body is looking for that comes along with the taste of sweet. So this is a great book to read, Sugars That Heal by Dr. Mondoa. And it'll help you understand a little bit more about why it's important to have a little bit of a healthy sweet taste. So, and there are a lot of 0-calorie sugars on the market today because we are addicted to the taste of sweet in the United States. We're erythritol and xylitol and pseudofructose, which is now called allulose. Allulose is a newer zero. It's a 0-calorie simple sugar. So it's a monosaccharide. And it will cause stomach derangement. It can cause gas and bloating, and because it's kind of a Frankenstein, you know, you know, sugar, and we and Frankenstein, Frankenstein. So sugars we need, and that's part of our problem, is that we're looking for that taste of sweet, which is important to balance out the other taste, bitter, sour, astringent, um, neutral, those kinds of other flavors. We're looking for that, but we're not getting sweet that is full bodied and has all its nutrients like Jaggery is. So, constantly turning to 0 calorie um, drinks and foods is still not going to give you what you're looking for those monosaccharides that really help us heal. So I think it's really important to take a look at that. And as a headline, just keep it under your hat and think about it for a while. Okay, the last headline that we have for Naturals in the News is combination of hibiscus and lemon verbena extracts may support satiety. Since we're talking about things that help us feel full and help us feel nourished, according to a recent study in Nutritional Outlook, February 25, 2022, the results of a new randomized double-blinded study have associated supplementation with, of course, proprietary mix of Lipia citriodora and hibiscus sabdiferia extracts with the ability to reduce your appetite, increase the feeling of satiety in a group of 36 overweight subjects. So again, what's beautiful about whole plants is they give us all the tastes that we're looking for. And lemon verbena has, with hibiscus, would have just a broad variety of sour and sweet and a little bit of astringency that would kind of make you feel like, wow, I just got something that really fed me. So that's a lovely study. Again, if your appetite is out of control, it may not even touch it. You really should see a professional. Absolutely make sure, if you're working with things like an appetite that's a runaway train, that you see a chiropractor, a naturopath, a clinical herbalist, someone who is skilled in helping you understand what might be going on with your body and why it's out of balance. So, okay, that's it for Naturals in the News. And we are on to our next segment called Naturals in the Know. So I am going to play our fun music. All
Bring
right.
on the music.
All right. All right. And we have a very special guest today, Tom. You please introduce.
With absolute great pleasure. Rob and I. This is a gentleman by the name of Rob Seeman, and Rob works out of Chicago as a broker and has been in the industry probably as long as I have, just about, which is pre-dinosaurs.
He doesn't look it though.
Literally, I know, neither one of us. It's a testament to the industry. So, we go so far back, Rob, and we have seen so much change. You are a broker, which means that you represent multiple lines out there to the retailers that you talk with, and you have seen a lot of changes in this industry. I want to ask you a question. I'm
Sure.
going to steal it from Nan probably because I know Nan is, and I talked about it. Why did you start in the natural products industry as a broker?
Um, I started in the natural products industry by working in a health food store. First of all, thanks so much for having me on and for doing this, because I first saw the Tom and Nancy show live and in person here in Chicago
Live and
when
in
you
color.
guys came as educators for natural products companies to speak to a full house multiple nights in a row, and we would buy them all dinner back in the good old
Back in the
pre-COVID
day.
days.
Yeah.
Not that you aren't exciting on the computer, but if anyone's ever seen Tom and Nan in person, you really can keep a full room riveted. Um, I can speak to that personally. But what got me started was it was the only part-time, the second most fulfilling, or right up there in the top two, working in a record store or something like that. Working in a health food store, it wasn't just like, thanks, man, that was a great record. It was like, thank you for recommending something or trying to steer me towards something that had a real positive impact on my life. So as I started seeing in my own life, in the lives of others, the real impact that these natural medicines, whether they be foods or supplements or what, could really have. So that led me
That
to,
sounds like a title to a book. None dare call
Yeah.
it a medicine.
that's, yeah, for sure. Put a little asterisk after everything I say. None of
Right.
this has been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah.
That's right. So I know both of us have seen this, but what are some of the changes that you've seen in the last 30 years that stand out in your mind in this industry? I mean, there's so many.
It's
It's kind of
unbelievable how much it's changed. Yeah.
Well, I thought about that, and to me, I often remark that the first 15 years, even 20 years that I was in the business, things didn't change a whole lot. I mean, we had new things come out, but
Right.
the general operating conditions and trends and macro trends, really, for me, like 95 to 2010, really looked kind of like a basically consistent path. And then, because our industry was sort of um, immune in some ways to some of the trends that are happening in the larger culture. So the corporatization took longer to hit us.
Exactly.
The shift to online purchasing, the e-commerce swoop in took longer to hit us because we had built our own culture. As
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
natural products, the health food culture was sort of like, we're doing our own thing over here.
Land of the fruits and nuts, right?
we have our own
Right, we
village.
did. We had our own village. Well said, Tom. Yeah.
But at some point it started catching up with us. So that's been the trend, I think. And I won't name any names here, but the big corporate, big box influence on American life has influenced the health food business. And we're all still sort of reeling now in this post pandemic, or I hope we're post pandemic period,
Yeah.
where we're all sort of adjusting and just dealing with the new realities of 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, the internet also really created a even deeper shift, but that in a not so great way, actually, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
almost cast a shadow on our industry. I mean, I think as a village, and we are a village, we are a group of people who really know each other, and you just came back from the show, right, Rob? And nobody slept because everybody knows everybody else, and everyone, it's like a big huge howdy doody and let's hang, and then there's a big dance and we all get out and dance together and share music and share food, and it is really an incredible group of people. And unfortunately, and Tom and I have talked about this before in our earlier episodes about how the internet has really cast a shadow on the natural products industry even more than before. I mean, it used to be all those people who go to health food stores, they're really crunchy granola. And we are, but we also are we're incredibly particular, and we have our standards are even higher than the European standards for food and supplements. I mean, we are hardcore. We don't want crap in our stuff, right? And read the fine lines about everything. Everybody in our natural products industry that I know is like that. And now we have this infiltration of, wow, there's money there, so we're going to grab ours through the internet and through some of these big companies that have just, like you said, they swooped in, they purchase companies, and then they change them, and like inherently change them. So it there is this huge shift going on, and we're all kind of doing one of these nail biting because the people who the natural products industry has kind of created our own group of people. We're nervous about this because we really don't we want to be self-governed. We absolutely do, because our standards are higher.
Well, and that's a great point,
Yeah.
Nan. And the fact is that, we do have standards, and people think a lot of times, well, this is like the Wild West. Nobody's looking after them. Nobody's watching what they're doing. But we do. Every really good manufacturer has FDA inspections. They have National Safety Association inspections, and so we do have, manufactured to good manufacturing
Yeah.
GMP processes. But Rob, you mentioned something. We've just come through a pandemic, and we do, in fact, hope very sincerely that the pandemic is done and that we can start going on with our lives. Um, how did you see the pandemic affect your stores?
Well, it's just like Nan was kind of alluding to this greater trend of e-commerce. For older consumers, I think prior to the pandemic, a lot of them were afraid. I don't want to say afraid, but hesitant to buy online. They were not, millennials are sort of like, oh, click and buy. This is, or even Gen Z, I should say. Now we're into Gen Z. Everyone's, and Gen X is doing it too, click and buy. But with the pandemic, I think we saw people not wanting to go into brick and mortar retail stores. So if you own a brick and mortar, because a lot of our industry, this is the thing we're kind of maybe not getting into, they're mom and pops, been there for 40,
Yeah.
50
Oh
years,
yeah.
maybe second generation,
Yep.
and they've been operating this niche business where they supply the community with these unique things. Back in the day, where were you going to get your carob powder? You know,
Right.
And knowledge.
yes.
And
Yeah.
Thank you for
knowledge.
saying that, because that is really what they are. They're community health centers. That's what they have
Yep.
been. And you can't go get the honey from the hive and then start buying, your I'm going to make a mixed analogy here, but then, when you start buying online after you've gotten the knowledge from the local store, what happens is that mom and pop really feels the impact.
Yeah.
There's a book, The Death of the Local Economy, and I think we are really seeing that. And I try to say it all the time, and I know other folks do. It's supporting
Right.
independence, it's supporting local business.
Yeah.
And this was, people would say this is a rallying cry during the pandemic. Restaurants that were part of a community would start doing takeout, retail stores doing curbside. So people were trying to adapt,
Mm.
but I think the consumer has to be the most diligent, because if they just get in the habit of click and buy, you look around and that mom and pop isn't there anymore, whether it's a local health food store, a restaurant, a juice shop, whatever. Those people need our support every day.
I totally agree. So
Absolutely. So,
go
and,
ahead,
and
Tom.
go ahead,
I was just going to ask Rob, like,
Nan.
what are some of the things that you personally have done with your brokerage business during the pandemic to enhance your business to survive? Because if the retailers aren't doing well and you're selling to the retailers, how does that impact you? And you must have, I mean, you're still here. Thank God, Rob, you're still here and you're still going. So what
Yeah.
are some of those things?
That
Yeah,
I
I know. It's
By
sometimes
the
it's a
grace
wing
of
and a
God.
prayer, right?
Yes. I mean, I think we've seen is a lot of disruption. So, as I said, the first 15, 20 years of this industry that I witnessed firsthand kind of went, fairly steady. And what we saw in March of 2020 in our industry was a huge spike where people discovered uh, natural remedies, where they discovered zinc. Well, they discovered about four of them, right? They
Right.
discovered uh, medicinal mushrooms, or I should say, beneficial mushrooms,
Hmm.
zinc.
Yeah. There's a
Yes,
PCC.
Fine.
I will use the DSHEA compliant term: beneficial mycelia and
Right.
mushrooms, elderberry,
Yeah.
quercetin,
And
zinc.
zinc.
That's
Right.
about maybe one or two others, but they discovered four remedies, and those went.
A little reminder on
Yeah.
vitamin
Vitamin
D, and
D, yeah,
yeah.
thank
Right.
you. And that is those are really important. Vitamin C. There were some other, but and if you're really smart, you put them all together in one. And
Right.
every company did this at
Right.
once.
Right.
So it was
Right.
tripping over each other to do the exact same thing and to put us in a tiny little box. But who could blame them? But you
Right.
had a huge spike in demand,
Hmm.
and then a resultant drop in supply.
Right.
And at the same time,
Yeah.
all these tanker trucks, trying to get over here to bring us some ingredients weren't getting in. So there was this whole supply chain disruption that was affecting every industry. What we saw was this huge increase in demand, and then sales drop off if for no other reason than you couldn't get not even the ingredients, because a lot of ingredients for our companies are grown or produced um, locally, or
Locally.
they're vertically integrated,
Mm-hmm.
but containers, the tops for those containers, companies had to adjust. Well, hey, I know it came in a blue bottle last week, but this time it's going to come in a brown bottle, because blue bottles
Yeah,
are
exactly.
not coming in from China.
The next week it might be
But
orange.
hey, at least you get a bottle of something.
Yeah,
So everyone
exactly.
had to adapt, and I think out of stock at store level became the new norm. I mean, there were companies running, big companies that make a lot of products running at like 40%
Wow.
in stock rate. So, out of stock of more than half of the things that they make.
Right.
So,
Wow,
Yeah.
Rob, that's crazy.
Again, the other part of the pandemic is there were so many people getting sick there in the very beginning that many of the businesses that we sort of rely on in the background had huge fallout in their staff, their
True.
workforce, because their workforce was sick, and so they couldn't even manufacture to the level
Yeah.
that they were normally manufacturing. And then you had the same thing, and I know you noticed it when you were actually allowed to go into stores, because some stores weren't even allowing reps to come in. And my hat is
Yeah.
off to you guys and to the people who are the actual workers in all of these mom and pop and health food stores and the big box stores. All of them showed up in spite of all of the terrible, scary, negative, you're all going to die type press, to be there to help
Exactly.
people. And I think it's just another, statement about our industry, is that people were sincerely there wanting to help. And I think you probably saw that, didn't you?
yeah, absolutely. And, this was, to your earlier question about what I did, I started doing, much like you guys, a podcast during that earliest time of COVID, where I was kind of sitting on my hands because, as much as we wanted to help,
Right.
as you kind of alluded to,
Right.
it wasn't a good time the first couple of months
Right.
at the very
Yeah.
of the pandemic to go into a health food store, even if you were masked and socially distanced. It was kind of like probably not the best time for an in-person visit, from Whole Earth Marketing. So
Right.
we had to find other means. And so I had already had a podcast called Whole Earth Radio, but I kind of ramped it up during the pandemic, and I was able to interview some medical experts like Dr. Decker Weiss. That was a really good one early on in the pandemic, not because of me, but because he is such a incredible voice
Yes.
for the natural way
Yeah.
in the
Integrative
mainstream.
cardiologists. They're very rare. And he's,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, imagine most cardiologists are very mainstream, and here he is, this integrative cardiologist. He's amazing, amazing. Yeah.
and he had treated. This was early on. This was a couple months in the pandemic. He had treated over 300 people with COVID by like April of 2020 in his practice. So he had treated more. So that kind of thing, doing the pod, and I am still doing it. So I've got to have the two of you on sometime, if you
Oh, we'd
will.
love to. Yeah,
We would love it. We
We
would
can do
absolutely.
a
love it.
Whole Earth Radio episode. But I think we had to learn new tricks. We had to use our email more. We had to get on the phone more, where we're used to maybe just walking in the front door of a store. We all had to pause. And so I think everyone who survived all of that with their business intact, and, you know, thankfully, Whole Earth Marketing is still thriving, doing very well. We have weathered, knock on wood, we have weathered the storm by sticking together.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
you said, I mean, this industry is really, you know, and this country, and I think as a people, we are generally, when push comes to shove, there are things that divide us, but
we're good
our
in a
inner, our,
crisis. Yeah.
yeah, our
Yeah.
inner conscience, our better angels of our better nature. That's the phrase I'm looking
Oh,
for.
I like that.
They kick in, and no
Yeah.
matter how you feel politically or blah 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 about how you feel about vaccines or whatever, we're allowed to have a difference of opinion
Yeah.
in this
I know.
country. I saw people coming together in a way that I had not in a long time.
That's so great. I love that. That's
Hmm. And
inspirational.
speaking of coming
Yes.
together, you
Go
you,
Eagles!
you just got back from the largest, let's call it gypsy gathering of health food aficionados, um, that takes place at this time of year on the West Coast in Anaheim, and that's the Expo West. Boy, it must have been a pretty joyful and excited reunion for all of these people. It's really like, I know in the gypsy culture they call it a juerga, where they get together and they're just partying for 76 hours straight, and then they go their separate ways. So what can you tell
How
us?
was
How
it?
Is
was
that
it?
what they call it? A juerga? It's like,
Leave it to
juerga have
Tom
I
to know
been?
this.
No, it's
Trivial
great.
Pursuits, isn't that great?
Yeah, no, I think different cultural expressions have a similarity, and the natural products industry, as Tom said, is a lot like a gypsy culture,
We are.
because a lot of traveling and people from different places. But it was a very triumphant return. Natural Products Expo West 2022. I know all the stores, all the um, natural products associations, and just everyone, just like really happy to be able to come back together. One, because it's great to see people you haven't seen
Mm,
except on a
Mm.
virtual uh, screen for the past couple of years, but also hopefully it signifies a return. It
yeah.
signifies a turning point, and that things are going to get better as a whole, and so there was all of that. It was just joyous and triumphant to see people that you haven't seen in a couple years, where we were used to seeing in 3 years, because the last Expo West was 2019.
Oh, that's right. Right.
So
Yeah.
this was 2022. It had been 3 full years, because 2020, they very start of the pandemic, and
Right.
or the lockdown phase, the
Right.
really serious acute phase in this country,
Right.
was when they canceled Expo West 2020, just like 3 days
3 days
prior to
before
the
it,
start.
right? I remember that. Mm-hmm.
So we number one, people had the rug pulled out from under them a couple of years ago, rightfully so. I think New Hope did the right thing,
Yeah, they
shutting it
did.
down.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe could have done it a little bit
Yep.
earlier, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So, so that's great. It's wonderful to hear how joyous it was. I'm sure a lot of wonderful business occurred. I'm sure great ideas. There's sometimes when we're in a quandary or there's pressure. Sometimes lemonade is made from lemon, so I'm sure there were new formulas that were
Hmm.
created that were immune supportive, and I'm sure people really put their hats on and said, how can we help, as a natural products industry in a really healthy and yeah, in
Very
a
big
big
way.
way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was a lot of cool stuff that happened. And of course, I wasn't there. My practice has been so busy, I can't see straight. And again, to your point about people saying, what can I do to take care of myself so that my immune system stays healthy and strong, or my body stays healthy and strong? I have a lot of people in my office, for wellness visits. So it's great and wonderful, but it's overwhelming. So of course I wasn't there, but I did get some shout outs from some of my buds.
I
We
bet.
miss you from Anaheim West,
Yeah.
and
Really.
I'm sure we'll be back again. And Tom, you didn't go this year, did you? Mm.
No, as a company, the company that I work for decided to spend one last show
Protection.
not there,
Yeah,
just to make sure, out of an abundance of caution for the people
yeah,
that work there.
it
It's
is.
a small company, and so very
It's
protective of the
really, really
individuals who work
nice.
there.
Well, it
Rob,
sounds like a
we
company run
really,
by
Rob,
very smart people, Tom.
yes, very smart people. Obviously, it was so great to have you on, and please, I'll have my ear to the ground for your podcast as well. I did
yeah,
Whole
that's
Earth
Whole
Radio.
Earth
Yeah,
Radio.
absolutely. And we're really excited for you. We hope it brings you a lot of great connections and really great support for your business. And Thank you for,
And it's great to see
yes.
you
So
again.
good
I
to see.
can't wait to see you in person.
Yes, likewise,
But,
both of
you
you. It's
know,
been
Yeah.
too
the
long.
real true
But
gypsy
Yes.
thank
way.
you so much for this, because this is truly the next best thing to be able to have this conversation.
That's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming, and have a
All
really
right.
wonderful
You bet.
day. And we will see you soon. Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
we
wait
I'm
for
going
the.
to hold you
ready.
to that.
Okay. Excellent.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Tom and Nan.
All right. Oh, that was
Right.
great. He is.
That, yeah, absolutely one of my favorite
Oh,
people. Always full of information and always upbeat.
God, he is.
And you know
Yeah.
what,
How
man?
about Tom? Why don't you start? I know it's going to be, this is a really, I love our favorite things. It has become a favorite part of my whole consciousness about sharing what are my favorite things, not just from my practice, but even from my own herbal and supplement cabinet. So sometimes this has nothing to do with my practice and more about my own personal stuff. And I know you
Yeah.
too. You share things that you oftentimes you use yourself. So,
Well, and on this one of my favorite things is, especially with, the pandemic and the brain fog that
oh
people
yeah.
experience, and aging and memory
Yeah.
and things like that. Being 73, I'm always working on, especially having a mother who passed from Alzheimer's. I'm always looking at my cognitive function, and doing as much as I can to make sure that I stay as sharp as I can. Um, so one of the herbs, and I have a wide range. My sober cat, my nickname is the herbal
Yes.
storyteller, and I have a really broad herbal interest, and Ayurveda has always fascinated me. The science, Ayurveda stands for the science of life. It means the
Hmm.
science of life, and it's from the continent of India, which is, their medical history goes back thousands and thousands of years. Um, One of the herbs that they use in Ayurveda is Bacopa monnieri. And Bacopa monnieri is one of my favorite herbs for the fact that it has such a wonderful effect on memory and on brain function. It's in Ayurveda, it's considered to be what's called a rasayana, and a rasayana is a rejuvenating herb. So it helps to rejuvenate, and it was used for the brain and for the nervous system. So it calms and it soothes the nerves. It supports your intellect, which is really nice. It keeps you sharp and focused. So it helps you to maintain alertness, but at the same time, it's not like
Right.
overstimulating. So you're not like hypered out. You really have this tranquil energy, but your brain is just sharp and clear. In fact, it so helps you with concentration that in India, it's one of those herbs that's very, very favored
Students.
by
Yeah.
students. Getting ready to go through their final exams for college, or going through
Right.
quarterly exams and so on, because it helps them with
Right.
recall. They help to remember what it is they've learned. They help to put it out there, and then usually it's combined with another herb that shares a name. So in Ayurveda, the name for Bacopa monnieri is Brahmi, and Brahmi, in fact, they call it Jala Brahmi because it likes to grow in really damp,
Hmm.
moist places. It's a fascinating plant. I absolutely love the plant. Beautiful little white flowers. You can actually plant it in a hanging basket, and it
Is it
drapes all
called
over the side of the
hyssop?
hanging basket.
Water
What's
hyssop.
called water
Hmm.
hyssop, yeah. In herbal practice, there's a thing called the doctrine of signatures, which says that the plant, in some way, by its color, by its shape, by the growth habit that it has, will give you an indication. It's like nature's way of letting you know, hey, here's what I'm good for. And with Brahmi, or with
Bacopa. Yeah.
Bacopa, it grows really along the ground, and it just intertwines like crazy. So it's all these little tendrils that are intertwining. And in the doctrine of signatures, you might look at that and say, wow, that looks like a nervous system. And oddly enough, the plant is really, really good for the nerves. Now, again, it can be a little bit confusing, because if you're looking at Ayurvedic herbs and somebody says, "Oh, you use Brahmi," it can also refer to another herb that is oftentimes used for cognitive function, and that's gotu kola, or
Placenta. Yeah.
Centella asiatica. Okay, and the best way to keep that sort of clear is in southern India, Brahmi is Bacopa, and in northern India, Brahmi is generally referred to as
Go to
what we would now
cola.
call
Right.
Gotu. Yeah, but those are, they're both amazing herbs for cognitive function and memory and focus and so on. And really, the name Brahmi is pretty amazing because it comes from Brahman, and Brahman is in Sanskrit is the universal consciousness. It's the universal awareness of everything. So it goes way beyond. We could go very deep into that discussion, but just really quickly, it's like the universal consciousness, and just to have an herb that in Ayurveda was considered to connect you to that universal consciousness is pretty amazing. Now it has a lot of different uses, and some of the ones that I've found that I think are really kind of fascinating is not only the use of students who use it because it helps them with their memory and their recall, and there have been smaller human clinical trials with
Yep.
aging people, showing that it had a really good effect on helping to return their memory, helping them to learn better, helping them to
Yeah.
retain what they learned, helping them to recall. And it is an adaptogenic herb, so it does help us adapt to the stresses of daily life. But one of the really amazing things is there's been studies showing that it has quite a bit of potential benefit for children with ADHD. There's been some human
Yeah.
clinical trials on that showed it was very effective. Obviously, there need to be more
Right.
more human trials. You can't just go out and say, okay, there was one, so it's good.
Because
But
Brahmi,
from a point of
Bacopa
view,
has a really calming effect on the mind. So that would be really great for a mind
it
that's just,
really does.
going in circles, like it's, yeah, agitated.
Agitated, agitated,
Hmm.
agitated. Yeah, yeah. And and the thing is that it's an herb that can be used almost across the board. Obviously, if you're taking, strong pharmaceuticals, you always want to
Oh,
talk to your
absolutely.
practitioner about, can I add this? And it's interesting though. It's one of those herbs that it has a
It
beautiful
does.
taste, and it's got a little bit of bitterness, but a
Hmm.
little bit of sweetness, and it is
Yes.
cooling. So for
Heat.
heat, myself,
Yeah.
I run hot. And so Bacopa for me is a really good herb because
Right.
I have a lot of what they would call pitta,
Right.
fire in my
Where you have
system.
that again, that
And it
agitation, that like, that
yeah,
hamster
that
in a
that like
cage in the mind,
drive.
but you
Yeah,
can't think straight because there's just too much going on. Whereas go to cola is the opposite, is when the mind is dull, and the go to cola brightens the mind and actually stimulates a little bit more. So
exactly.
that's how they're a little different. So if you hear, oh, you use go to cola or you use Brahmi, you have to think, or you use Bacopa, you have to think, well, what is my mind like right now? Is it dull? Or is it just bouncing off the walls in there, right? So that's,
Right, and the thing is, the nice thing is they
yes,
can
they
be
can.
combined. So you can combine them to get that
Yes.
balancing effect and that sharpness. And some of the studies have actually indicated also, and it's the way it was used Ayurvedically, is Bacopa can actually enhance the quality of
Hmm.
your sleep at night, and that's really kind of wonderful. So to kind of sum it up, it's one of those herbs that's very beneficial if you're looking for something to help you with your cognitive function that is also an adaptogen, so it's going to help your body adapt to the stresses, especially the mental stresses that we're all under. Bacopa is a great herb, and any kind of Bacopa that you can get, make sure you get it from a reputable company, not just something that you
Right.
see on the internet. Do
Yeah.
some research because it definitely is one of those herbs that you want to make sure you get, especially like
Yes.
Rob was mentioning, in these times where supply chains are interrupted by COVID and by everything that we've been through. Sometimes some disreputable manufacturers will just throw in almost anything or inferior
Hmm.
quality just to be able to
Yeah.
produce a product because they know people like it. So make sure you do some homework around that. And literally, 300 to 600 milligrams a day is right around where you want
Suggested
to be.
serving. Yeah.
Remember that you want to ask, if you're taking any kind of medication, ask your
Absolutely.
practitioner. But other than that, um, again, one of my favorite herbs. And I know Nan's going to talk about something that kind of ties
Yes.
in with that.
So they're magnesium. I want to talk about magnesium because a lot of people are starting to take more magnesium, which is great. But magnesium isn't just magnesium. When you purchase a magnesium supplement, you don't always get the same magnesium no matter what the product is you purchase. You have to really check what form magnesium is. And there are many different magnesium salts, and they all act a little differently. So we have magnesium citrate, magnesium orotate, magnesium oh wait, I just lost it. Oxalate, magnesium. I mean, there are really a lot of different forms. And probably the one that's most common today is magnesium citrate. But there is now a form of magnesium called magnesium threonate, threonate, threonate. And magnesium threonate was developed by researchers in Japan, Dr. Gosong Liu, a Japanese researcher. He knew that our brains actually need magnesium, a lot of it, and spent his career looking at different forms of magnesiums that he might enhance the brain function. Okay, so his team of researchers and the company that really put magnesium threonate on the map found that this form of magnesium entered the brain better. They did animal studies, then they did human studies, and had really good effects on memory, concentration, and learning. So you can see how if you're taking Bacopa, you can take magnesium threonate with it. His research team spent years comparing all the different forms of magnesium, like citrate or gluconate, or magnesium sulfate, or magnesium oxalate, or magnesium chloride, or magnesium citrate. He compared all of those magnesiums together to see how they would affect animal brains and then human brains. And the other forms of magnesiums actually didn't enter the brain to the degree that he was looking for an upswing in brain function. But the threonate form did. And in addition to that, the other magnesiums affected the bowel in a little bit of a negative way that can cause loose stools if you take higher doses of them. We call that, take your magnesium to bowel tolerance, which means that you can only take as much magnesium, whatever form it is, citrate, orotate, oxalate, or whatever. You can only take that form until your bowel says, oh, no more, please. Thank you. And so,
Right.
but the threonate did not upset the bowel even at higher doses, which is really fantastic. So any of you who take magnesium and kind of get runny stool, you're thinking, I want to take magnesium, but my body's not tolerating it so well, try magnesium threonate. All of the preliminary human research on magnesium threonate showed majorly two things, really two big things. That it may provide more magnesium to the brain and the nervous system than other forms of magnesium, and magnesium threonate was found to support healthy memory, learning, and brain synapse density, meaning more of those synapses. So as you grow, your brain actually, it prunes. It's called pruning. It prunes the neurons. And that's why you lose some details to memories as you get older. You think you're remembering clearly, but you really aren't, because your brain prunes your neurons, right? It's always getting rid of the old stuff and trying to add new. So in order to increase the density of your neurons so that you have more memory and your memory stays around longer, you want to think magnesium threonate. It's really good to have in your back pocket and really easy to take. Suggested servings is about 144 milligrams twice a day. So, anywhere around 300 milligrams of magnesium threonate a day is safe and effective. You can take up to a gram if you're about 150 to 180 pounds. As an adult. These are, of course, adult suggested servings. So if you're on pharmaceuticals for any reason at all, please check with your physician or your chiropractor or your naturopath or your integrative doctor or your clinical herbalist. Or if I'm forgetting somebody, I'm so sorry. Please check with your practitioner prior to adding this. Although it's been found to be very safe in humans and very effective, you always want to check, okay? So that's it. That's it for
Absolutely.
me on magnesium threonate. definitely one of my favorite, definitely a favorite magnesium in my life and in my practice. So
Yep, and I found it actually segues really nicely with one of my favorite mushrooms, and that's
oh
lion's mane mushroom.
yeah,
So
good
really good
combination.
combination
That's a
there.
nice little group of, you know, remedies: lion's mane, Bacopa,
Yeah.
and magnesium threonate. That would really support your healthy mind. So okay, so well, our time is almost up, and we do have one little
I think
request.
so.
We'll be doing this podcast twice a month, interviewing key people, as you can tell, and thought leaders in the natural products industry. And if you don't mind, please like our Facebook page, share our podcast with interested friends and family. Let us know if there's something you'd like us to talk about or people you'd like us to interview. In addition to all that fun, we know how crazy we are in the natural fruit industry. We are definitely, you know, not mainstream. That's what we like about ourselves. And we definitely are land of the fruits and nuts. Yep, literally. And we like to have a good time, and we can laugh at ourselves. And it's part of being healthy and happy to do that. Tom, do you want to tell people about our new segment that'll be coming up in the future? And natural customers
Well,
say
yeah,
the
what we're
darndest
working
things.
on really,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, natural customers say the darndest things. You know, basically what we're doing is we're reaching out to those of you who are natural food retailers, or even brokers and salespeople who've been in the stores and talked to customers across the United States and Canada. And what we want to know is, send us, if you will, your strangest little things that customers have asked, or the funniest things that they've shared with you, some of the most outlandish, because I know customers can say some really
It
goofy
can.
things, and it's just it's part of the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of our industry. I mean, that's part of the diversity of the industry that keeps us all so healthy and whole. So, keep it clean, keep it PC, because it is going to be broadcast, and keep it brief. But if we get an anecdote from you that we really love, we will definitely mention it on the air with this broadcast, as well as mentioning your store, the city, and who you are. So we would
We
love to
definitely
hear from
will.
you, and we're going to be working that in, called Natural Customers Say the Darndest
And with
Things.
that, I think we'll have to say our goodbye. So we had a really great day today,
Absolutely going to say goodbye.
and Rob was
And
amazing,
you know,
and it was
and
a really good show today.
oh,
So
and we're gonna be talking in the future more. We're gonna bring back Daniel Fabricant to talk to him more about this regulation that we were just mentioning to you, and the possibility that we're also losing more and more of our little supplements to this, these little backdoor policies. So we'll be doing that. We're also going to be bringing back Gordon Enns, who talked to us about chronic inflammatory process and his lab being able to
yeah,
check those things. So a lot of things coming up. Normally um, I close with a funny thing happened on the way to health, and it's those are dad jokes. I get it. Man says you gotta
I
get some
said
better you
we
gotta get
need
some
better
better material.
material. I don't want
So
to keep going wah
exactly
wah.
right. So we love you. We
Thank
are
you for
so happy
tuning
to be
in.
here. We love what we're doing, and thank you.
Yes,
Please share it with it. Share with everybody you know. Hey, go listen to these guys. They're goofy, but they've
yeah.
got great
Thank you so much,
information.
everyone, and we'll be on the air soon. Take good care. Hey, everyone. Until next time, I'm Nan.
And I'm
And
Tom.
we'll have more great topics and guests in the very near future. So join us right here in 2 weeks as the Supplement Super Sleuth.
And the herbal storyteller take another deep dive into the fascinating world of the natural products industry.
See you later.